I appreciate you guys being here. Scott and I have been working together to get a training put together for you. Today, we're going to go over some of the Microsoft Teams options. And then tomorrow, we have another training scheduled with you where we'll be going over a little deeper into SharePoint and OneDrive and the differences there. So before we get started, I'd like to send you guys a file here in the chat. This is just kind of an overview. This whole training is going to be a basic overview of Microsoft Teams, and this is Microsoft's overview PDF that they share with everyone. We're going to kind of follow this as we go throughout today. So as we go along, I want to make sure, please feel free to throw any questions in the chat or feel free to interrupt me if you have questions. Please keep those questions as general as possible. I find a lot of times I get people who want to say, my Teams isn't doing this specifically for me. And we can work on troubleshooting that in a different time one-on-one, but if you have a general question about how Teams functions, things like that, please feel free to jump in. Now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. What I've done is created a fake Teams environment, and hopefully you guys can see that. This is going to be the one that we're going to use a little bit today so that you guys can be a bit more familiar with it. Up at the top of your screen, if you guys didn't already know where this is, there is a raise hand button. By a raise of hand, how many of you are using Teams on a daily basis? Okay, we've got a few people. Okay, and going back to your raise hand function, go ahead and lower your hands. And then by raise of hand, how many of you rarely use it at all? Okay. 4 or 5 of you, and then I'm just going to go ahead and assume the rest of you are kind of an in-between. So what I want to do is I want to cover the possibilities of using Teams. I'm not here to give you any sort of sales pitch on whether you should or should not use it. This is something you guys will determine internally. My job here today is just to help you understand the possibilities of using it, and if that fits into your environment, great. Go ahead and utilize that tool to its fullest. But let's start off by going into the handout that I just sent into the chat. If you scroll down to where it says getting around, it's just on the second page there. So you'll notice that in Microsoft Teams, there is a menu bar over here on the left. And I apologize, I won't be looking at the camera all the time. My screen is over here that I'm sharing. So over here on the left, you'll have the menu bar. The top icon in the menu shows you your activity. This is going to be a section where it's going to let you know if people share a file with you, if people have used the @ feature toward you. It's going to let you know if you have new schedules, new appointments that have come up in Teams that people have shared with you. When you see that there's a little red 1 or 2 or how many notifications you have, those will show up right here. If you select activity, because I'm in kind of a made-up environment, I don't have anybody mentioning me or sending me invitations, so there's nothing in here now, but each of you in your Teams probably has at least something listed in the activity side right now. You can, in any of these, mark all of them as red all at once by clicking on these 3 dots and hitting mark as red. You can change the notification settings. If you're tired of getting notified about absolutely everything, you can jump in here to the notification settings, and there are a bunch of different settings that you can change. You can turn off sounds, you can change from showing the banner to turning off banners, and displaying different messages. And then you can also filter by clicking on the filter button here and typing in whatever you'd like to filter through those. This is a very basic menu right here. The activity menu really doesn't do much more than that. But let's move in. I'm going to skip chat for right now, and I'm going to go over directly into the Teams section. Now, Teams is kind of the meat of Microsoft Teams. And yes, you will get tired of hearing me say the word team over and over again. I apologize, but that's what everything is named in here. So Teams is this section is the meat of everything that you can do in Microsoft Teams. This is the section that is meant to be a section where people can collaborate as a group, working together on projects, common goals. You can make them fun. You can make them very serious. You can make a lot of different things in here. Each team, as you can see here, is made up of different what are called channels, and those channels will be listed below the top team name. Each channel can be one of 3 types of channels. So in here, if I want to create a new channel, as long as I have permissions, I can click on the 3 dots, add a channel. I can give it a channel name. I'm going to give it deployment 2. And this is a description. We can give it a specific description if we would like to. And then you can choose one of 3 types of channels. This channel can be a standard where everybody in the team itself has access. It can be a shared channel where I can share the information inside this channel outside my organization, or it can be a private channel. And a private channel is going to be meant for a channel that you can create that only members of that team can access it, but also only members of that team that you choose. So if you have a group of people, for example, my role here at Executech, I am technically part of the Human Resources Department. However, I don't need to see the private information that goes into the Human Resources section. So in our team, we have a channel here that is specifically Human Resources. It's a private channel, and I am not invited to that channel. That is a channel only for those who can see the private documents of the Human Resources section. Now I have the option of managing this channel from those 3 dots here. I can manage who has access to it. I can manage moderation if I want to make sure that when people post in my channel that I have a moderator before it gets posted, I can select that here. The general channel will be built into every team that you create. There's no real way of getting around that. It always creates a general channel from the beginning. And by default, everyone in this entire team has access to the general channel. So that is an open channel available to everyone, but is a good place for having everybody get together and be a part of the same group. Now, in each of these channels, there are multiple things that get created. One of the most important things to recognize is that it does create a file sharing section for this channel. If I click on the files section here, you'll see that there are files that are being shared, and those files will be accessible to anyone who has rights to be in the general channel. Now, if I made these private channels below, the files in that private channel below would only be accessible to the people who have access to see that channel. One of the things I want to talk about really quickly is the difference between SharePoint and OneDrive. And the reason I'm jumping into that from here is because when you save files in Microsoft Teams, they are technically being shared in a SharePoint site. When you save files in your OneDrive, they are being saved specifically for you. And let me show you what that means. So each of you with your Office 365 license has been given a OneDrive for Business license, and that is a storage location that is meant specifically for you. You can edit documents in there, but you can share those documents with other people, but they are not shared by default. You would have to go in and manually share if you want other people to have access to those documents. However, on the other side, if you put files in SharePoint, those files by default are shared with a team of people. So if you put files in Microsoft Teams in one of these channels, those files are technically part of SharePoint and are therefore shared amongst a team of people. So the reason that I bring that up is if you are collaborating on a document or on a PowerPoint presentation or something, and you want to make sure that everybody is going to continue to have access to that, you want to make sure that those are saved somewhere in a SharePoint style folder, whether they're on your internal SharePoint page, which Vincent, our trainer for tomorrow, is going to go deeper into for you tomorrow, or you can share them in a Microsoft Teams channel, and the people in that channel will have full access to that file as well. So if you left the company for any reason, and they needed to get access to those files, as long as they're in one of the SharePoint locations, those files are still accessible for everybody in that group. Okay, do we have any questions up to this point? I haven't seen anything come into the chat, but if you want to just chime in, if you've got a question, feel free to raise your hand and I'll try and call on you. Okay, nothing there. So one of the fun features about having these channels is being able to share and collaborate on your work together. In here, if you have these files shared in one of these channels, if you open up any of these files, it will open you up into, in this case, Microsoft Word Online. And it's going to allow me to work on that file, and anyone who is in that channel can work on that file simultaneously with me. That file will continue to be saved constantly, and that save always happens in this same spot. It will continue to be saved right here in this Teams channel for me. And then if we do need to make any changes to this file, outside of editing it, if we need to change like who we share it with, things like that, there is a share option, these 3 buttons, and then going to share. And I can share that with anyone within the organization and not give them access to my channel. This would be where I could then say, okay, this person has access to view the file only. I don't want them editing that. I'll send them a message here, and then I can hit this button, and that is going to send them an email letting them know that they now have access to view this deployment schedule. Okay. Another nice feature is being able to add these tabs up at the top. So if I have a document that I am working on frequently with a bunch of other people, and I've got a lot of files, maybe I've got a lot of files in this general channel that I don't want to have to sort through every day, but there's one file I get into all the time. What I can do is I can hit the plus button here and say add a tab. I can select that I want it to be a Word document. And then I have the option to choose from this SharePoint location, this team, the files that I would like to tab up at the top. The deployment schedule should then, and it already is now, but the deployment schedule should be up here at the top, and then anybody within this channel can go over to the deployment schedule. Again, opens up in Word Online. And then I've got multiple people editing this document at the same time. And this goes for pretty much any Microsoft Office 365 program, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of those can be shared up here as a tab. Then there are multiple other things that you can add up here. Let's say I want to work together with somebody on what is called a Microsoft Planner. By raise of hand, how many of you have ever used Microsoft Planner, if any of you? Okay, a couple of you. Okay, so Microsoft Planner is kind of a basic project management tool. What it's going to allow us to do is create a card and bucket system for tracking tasks and to-dos. So we're going to call this new deployment project. We're going to post to the channel about this this planner. So we're going to let everybody know. And now when I go back to my post, you can see that I have added a tab at the top. It's letting everybody in the channel know that I have posted to that. So here is my new deployment project. And we're going to get into Planner here in just a second, but I want to go back here to posts. And in the post section, most of you are probably used to using Microsoft Teams for chatting capabilities. And this works in a similar way, but is a little more on the group level, like everything in the Teams section is. What happens here is that it posts things in a conversation style. So instead of just posting every single thing that gets put into the chat, I can create a post, and those posts can be replied to. So instead of starting a new post, if I want to talk to everybody about having added this tab to the top, I can reply directly to this post. And you'll see it comes up in a subsection under there. If I want to start a new post, I can go down here and create a new post. And that new post gives me all sorts of options. I can create this post to multiple channels. If I want to make an announcement to multiple people throughout the company or multiple channels throughout this team, I can make this selection. And I can add subjects and headings and titles and make it look all pretty if I need to. And then as I say that, I can say, let's go ahead and post to multiple channels. It's just a test. And I'm going to post that, and I'm going to get that here where I can then reply. Again, it's going to just create another conversation post. And here in the conversation post, you would reply to them at the bottom. Okay. If there is an important message here that you want everybody to view every time they come in, you can pin that conversation to the top. And that conversation is going to stay up there as people come into the channel. If you are wanting to get everybody's attention, you can use the @ sign. And then you can choose who you want to get the attention of. If it's an individual, you can choose that individual and type in their name. If you want to get the attention of everybody in the entire channel, just type the name of that channel. And if you really want to, you can get the entire team and send that notification to everyone. And that notification is going to go out to everybody who's a part of that team, and everyone's going to get a banner at the bottom that says that you mentioned them in this chat. So again, that is a possibility. Use that with some common sense there, because if you have a channel or a team large enough, you may just message everybody in the company, and just keep that in mind. So speaking of those types of warnings, you can also call everybody in one channel all at once. So up here, if I go into one of these channels, if I click on this button here, it is going to create an immediate phone call, and that phone call is going to include everybody that is in that or in this deployment one channel. So this happens all the time. You'll get a phone call, you wonder who it's from, and 16 different people will join the call, and the person who initiated it felt embarrassed and dropped off. So you get 16 people who are just kind of staring at each other, wondering why the other person called. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that you utilize this only when necessary, but you do have the option of calling everybody in the channel. If you want to change notification settings for this channel, you can in here click on the three dots, say channel notifications, and you can be notified of all new posts if you want. That's off by default, but you can have that show in your feed or in a banner. And then if you get mentioned, if somebody uses an @ with your name, that will by default come up in a banner and a feed and let you know that you've been chatted with. Okay, let's see. Now, if you have been in a channel for a long time, maybe you've moved roles within the company and you no longer need the information that's coming up in these channels, you can, if you're not a part of the team, you can actually hide the entire team. Or if you've just moved to a different channel, you can hide specific channels. Now, if the reverse is true, you can also pin that channel. Say I'm a part of deployment team 1, and I want to make sure I always get the information coming up in those, and I want that to be up at the top for me. I can pin that up at the top, and that channel will always show up at the top of all of my channels. Now, how you organize your teams is going to be up to you. I have some companies that I've worked with that they use Teams pretty much exclusively for all of their collaboration. And so it's incredibly important to sit down and go through different teams that you're going to create, different team names, different team structures. I highly recommend creating fewer teams and more channels. What I mean by that is make your teams as large as possible, but then you can narrow things down in the sub channels below. If you don't do that, you're going to have a ton of teams listed off to the left here that you're probably not going to be listening to. And ideally, what you would do is create fewer teams with more channels that are more specific to what your role is and your function. But if you're not going to be using Teams exclusively for these types of things, it is usually by default, it is enabled that anybody can create a team. So if you are going to create a team, there is a plus button up here, and you can create a new channel, create a new team. I just don't recommend that you have a whole bunch of people creating a bunch of teams and inviting everybody to them. It just becomes noise at that point. So make sure that you sit down and think about how you want these to be organized and think through what channels you would like to have in there. And once you've got that laid out, then go ahead and start creating that for everyone. Okay. Let's see. Now, adding files to these, there are a couple of ways to do that. There is the upload button here. If you want to just upload, you can say files, and it's going to give you your regular view on how you upload files from your computer. Or if you would like, you can simply drag and drop a file from your computer directly into the files section, and it will just upload for you. Okay, let's jump back into this planner for a moment. This is one of the tools that I think does not get utilized enough, and can be something that is really helpful for a highly organized team. One caveat is that Planner is really good for a group of people who are going to stay on top of it and stay working with it and make sure that it's up to date. If you don't stay up to date with your planner cards and with the options in here, it just again becomes a lot of noise and can just cause you a lot of stress. You can eventually have a lot of planners that are assigned to you, and then it just becomes frustration. So if you're going to do this, again, I recommend using them sparingly, but with larger groups if possible. So Planner looks like this. Default, it comes in a card and bucket. So each of these is considered to be a bucket, and then each of these would be a card within that bucket. Every card is a task, and every task can be assigned to multiple different people. So let's just say we are setting up a task, a test task, and then we're going to assign it to an individual. I can then add that task to the bucket. I can open up the task and I can get a little more in depth with some of the settings here. I can move the bucket. I can tell it how far it is within the progress of this task. I can set a priority. And please note, when you do assign a card to somebody, it will notify them that this card has been assigned to them. And if you mark it as urgent or important, it will come up with more notifications, and it will let you know that this is an urgent by putting this little bell icon here. And you can have start dates, you can have due dates, you can have repetitive tasks. If there's something that you need to do on the first of the month every month, and it's always going to go to the same person, you can create that to repeat every month. You can put notes here, and you can even put in a sub checklist here. And those tasks will show up on the front of the card when you're inside the planner. You can have it show either the checklist, or you can have it show the notes section, whichever one you prefer. I personally prefer, if I've got a task list in here, I personally prefer to see the list on the front, but that's completely up to you. You also have the option of adding labels, so you can kind of colorize everything. This is going to be a project management, also part of the adoption process, so we're going to label that with both. Then we can go through and look at some of the charts to see what items are still being that are still in progress, items that are late, some that have not been started because nobody has gone in and marked them as in progress. Again, this is a very useful tool if you have a team that's going to stay on top of marking these. If they're not being marked, this information is not all that accurate, and so it just becomes noise at that point. But on each of these, each of these cards has a possibility of having a due date, and those due dates can be shown within the schedule here in the planner. If it is due at a specific day, let's say I want to make it due on Friday. And now you see my task is listed here on the schedule for everyone to see. This schedule, it is possible to sync this schedule with your Outlook calendar. I don't know that I recommend it. It once again creates a lot of noise on your Outlook calendar if you're not using these frequently enough to use that, then it's just kind of noise. And I would just recommend coming back and checking the planner calendar anytime you want to check on scheduling. You can also set it to a grid view to just see everything that is possible. But all in all, this is just one of those options that is in Teams that you can add up here as a tab. And then if I want, I can just go back to my posts. I'm back in my channel. And I can continue to just check on that planner as I come into my channel. Microsoft Forms is another one of the options that most of you, if not all of you, will have. You can create different forms. The form itself is going to be created by you, and then if you want to keep that in here, you can put it as a tab. Forms are really good for getting feedback on things. I have forms that we send out for training feedback for our internal employees, things like that, and those forms are kept here in one of my teams. Kim, would you mind explaining what you mean by the grid and filters for Excel?
We have a lot of people that are highly addicted to Excel, and so the grid form and the planner would probably be of interest to them. And then, of course, how they can filter.
Oh, okay. I see what you're
Excel.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I thought you meant within Excel, but yeah, so in here, if we select grid, and then over here, there are also filters where we can filter by items that are in progress, which bucket that they belong to, due dates. So if I'm worried about everything that is due this week, I can then filter by only the things that are due this week. It's going to show me who is assigned to those tasks and what progress they are in right now. So I'm going to say this one was started, so it's in progress. And this grid view is going to give me just kind of the ability to narrow things down by different buckets, assignments, labels, etc. So hopefully that's what you're looking for there, Kim.
Yeah, I think some people will find that useful.
Okay, great. Yeah, is there anybody who would like me to go into anything deeper in Planner? If so, go ahead and just raise your hand, and we can delve deeper. But a lot of this is going to be just getting into it and utilizing it. One of the things that I did notice when I got into your Microsoft Teams, and this is a copy of what you guys have. I noticed you do have a test team, and I don't know if people have been using that for testing purposes, but I would highly recommend creating a test team if this is not the right one, getting in there, letting people have access to it, have one team that's just there for you to mess up and play around in. But if you're interested in creating something within Microsoft Teams for a group of people, then create a test team, go in there, learn how to make a channel, learn how to run a channel, and get deeper into it so that you understand how to do it before you put it into a live team. But okay, one more thing I want to talk about specifically about Teams is the ability to hide them or delete them altogether. So down here, if I click on these three dots again, say I'm done with this planner, this project is over, all of these items have been checked off, then I can go ahead and delete this entire team because this project is over. I'm not going to do so because I do utilize this team for other trainings, but I'm going to hit this delete team. That is going to delete the team. That is going to delete the groups. It is going to delete the files. So please only utilize this for when you're sure you're done with everything. You don't want to get rid of things that need to be archived, but if you're not going to get rid of the team, people can leave the team whenever they would like, or you can add more members on the go. Now, keep in mind that each team does have permissions listed with it. When I go in to manage the team, only owners of the team are allowed to delete the team. Members and guests would not have access. When you go into here, if you're a member or guest, you would not have the delete team button. You would only see this button if you are the owner of that team or the owner of that channel. So you can delete specific channels if you would like, or you can archive a channel, which means that channel is not going to show up for anybody listed anymore, but the files, the chats, all the information that came with that channel are going to be archived still in SharePoint and accessible to owners, and can be gotten back into by administrators or owners of that team. Again, managing channels, if you want to add more members, you can add members to these channels. You can add members to these teams on the fly. You do not have to create them, set them, and hope that they just are what you want for the future. But you can modify these as you go. All right. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about, let's jump out of the team section here. Let's go back into the chat section. And one of the things I want to show in the chat section is how to mark the how to mark yourself as away or do not disturb. And if you're not doing that, I highly recommend that you start doing that when you get in here. So up here, I get into a chat. There's only one other person in this entire company with me. So the only person I can chat with is this learning and development. But I can go over here to my icon, click on that, and I can set myself from available to any of these. Now, let's say I don't want to be disturbed for the next hour. So I can set myself to do not disturb. Do not disturb is going to keep it so that nobody, when anybody messages you, you're not going to get the little banner at the bottom and you're not going to get a sound notification. This is helpful for when you're doing, like I'm doing now, I'm doing a presentation. So my status is currently set to do not disturb so that I don't get little pop-ups while I'm doing the presentation. Normally you would set yourself to either busy or be right back or something, but you can set a duration on here. So for example, if I just need to be working on something for 30 minutes where I'm not getting disturbed, I can say do not disturb for 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, my do not disturb will go from do not disturb back to available. If you need to put a status message, you can say, that you're working on a project, so then people know that they shouldn't disturb you. That's not the case for me right now, so I'm going to take that off and I'm going to change back to available. If you want, you can mark whether you're working from home or remotely, or if you're in the office today, you can set that status here as well. Now, in these chats, I can chat with learning and development, and they would be able to chat back with me. Obviously, this is a fairly basic function, but down here, you can also format these chats. You can schedule the message if you want to, which is really handy. If you want to not disturb anybody, it's maybe 7 o'clock at night and you just want to get something off your chest and send it off there so that you remember to notify them in the morning. You can schedule this message to go out. Say that I want it to go out tomorrow at 8 a.m. And then whatever I type and I hit send, it's going to actually send tomorrow at 8 in the morning. I'm going to discard that message, but another thing to note is the delivery options. I have the ability to set the message to important. If I set it to urgent, now I know that there's always at least one person in every training group that just loves the idea of doing this. So I apologize to any of you who are going to be the recipients of urgent messages for the next little bit, but the urgent message, whether you're on Do Not Disturb or not, will notify you every 2 minutes for the next 20 minutes. So it is kind of an obnoxious feature. If you want to be obnoxious, you can be. However, it is also a good thing, for example, when we have maybe a client situation and we're trying to get a hold of a tech who's maybe not paying attention to their phone because they're working on something. I can send them an urgent message that's going to notify them every 2 minutes until they respond. if they're not responding in other ways. So this is useful. However, I would recommend just using it very little if possible. Okay, another feature within the chat that is fairly new is called loop components. Loop components are going to let you do things like have bulleted lists, put in a table, have a numbered list. You can create a task list with the person, and these become kind of a live working document within your chat. You can put a title in here, and I'm going to create a table, and I can create a bunch of different tables here and call the different columns whatever I want. But then when I send this, it's going to load this into my chat. And then I'm going to have that table available. Maybe I am brainstorming something with learning and development, and I can put in this table whatever I like, idea 1, idea 2, and then those come up live for learning and development as well. So on the other end, they're seeing this live, and we can work on these columns together. Now, if you've posted something by mistake, you can delete that. I don't necessarily want this table in here, so I'm going to delete it. I can redo any of the messages that I have already done by hitting the pencil, and it's going to let me edit my message. And then it will change it for me. It will notify them that it has been edited right here at the top, so just keep that in mind. And then you can, just for kicks and giggles, you can react to anybody's chat with any of these emojis that you would like. And yeah, it just allows you to give it a thumbs up by default or tell them that you really like it by giving it a heart, things like that. So again, up here at the top, you can hit the call button. If you've decided to make this a group chat, you would make it a group chat by adding people to it here with the Start Group Chat button, searching for the individuals that you would like to add to the group chat. And then again, keep in mind that if you are in a group chat and you hit call, it will call everybody in the group chat. So you run into the same issue you run into with the channel itself. And then you will have a bunch of people sitting on a phone call not knowing who called them. So it's, again, if you want to do that, it's kind of fun, but again, I wouldn't do it very often. So any questions so far about the chat? Okay. Just like in the channels, if there is a chat that is going on, I am a member of probably 200 different chats within my company. I don't need to hear all of those dinging every time. You can mute a chat if you need to. You can say mute here, and then anytime that person chats with you, it is not going to notify you. It will show you in the chat bubble here that there is an unread message, but it will not notify you unless somebody sends you an urgent message. And then even if you've muted that chat, it will come through. If there's somebody that you want to talk to and their status is currently not unavailable, you can find them in the chat, click on the 3 buttons and say notify when available. So when that person's status comes up as available next, you will get a notification in Teams that they're online and that they're available so that you can chat with them. Then they can't get away from you. All right. And again, just like with anything else, if you don't need it anymore, there is a delete button and you can delete that chat. If you're part of a group chat, there will also be a leave chat button that lets you leave if you no longer need to be a part of it. One big thing to keep in mind with chats versus channels, when you store a file in a channel, those files are stored in SharePoint with giving everybody in the team access to those files. If you share a channel or share a file within the chat, it will not do that. Files within chats are part of your OneDrive. And so they, by default, are not shared with anybody else. You can, if you put a file in a chat, it does share that file with the individual in the chat. However, that file still exists in your OneDrive. And if you leave the company for some reason, then that file gets deleted with your account, with your OneDrive. So OneDrive is not the place to go to collaborate with groups on documents. That would be Microsoft Teams and putting those in channels. However, if you just want somebody to quickly proofread something, you can drag and drop that file in here. That is going to move that file to your OneDrive. It will then give edit permissions to the person in the chat that is with you, and you can send that to them there. Those files will then be listed up top in a section called shared. And here's a list of my shared files in this chat. And this file is something that learning and development can now go into, read and edit if they need to. But again, keep in mind, these are OneDrive files. They are not SharePoint files. Okay, if there are no more questions about the chat, we're going to go ahead and move on down our menu here. We're going to talk briefly about the calendar. This calendar is, it should look very similar to your Outlook calendar. If you keep things on your Outlook calendar, they will sync over and show here as well. However, this is not a replacement for your Outlook calendar. Your Outlook calendar can do millions of things more than this can. This is really just a shortcut for you to see upcoming meetings and be able to join Teams meetings if you have them listed here and create new meetings as well. So if you wanted to create a new meeting, you can do that here. You can do that in your Outlook calendar. They do tie together, but just make sure that when you create it in your Outlook calendar, that there is an option to set it and make it a Teams meeting. Now, most of the time when you create a meeting in here, you're going to simply create a scheduled meeting. I'm not going to delve too deep into the rest of these. These are kind of a larger scale. If you're going to be hosting a webinar or a company town hall, you can produce larger events here with some of these options. And then you can have a virtual appointment where the person comes in and they have a lobby that's tailored to them. And then if you want to do any of that, you can, but I would recommend just kind of exploring that on your own and working with maybe a partner to kind of go in and see what that looks like. But for the most part, I'm assuming most of you are going to stick to the schedule meeting section, and most of you are probably going to be scheduling meetings in Outlook, but just know that the option is in Teams as well. So if I wanted to schedule a meeting, I will come in here and call it test meeting. I can add other required attendees. There's my learning and development person. So since they're the only other person in this company, they're going to be required to meet with me. If I want to, I can add a channel to this meeting. So if I want to have a team meeting and our team already has a channel, then I don't need to go through here and add each individual person. I can just go in and say, I want to have a meeting with Deployment Team 1. And Deployment Team 1 is now added to this invite. And I can have it send personal invites, or I can have it send a team invite. I can put a location if I've got a specific room I want to be in, things like that. So if there's an agenda, I can add a document and I can create this. This is going to use Loop, that feature I showed you earlier, where it's going to automatically create an agenda outline for you and you can add to this agenda. set my times, set my availability, set who can be in the lobby, who can bypass the lobby if necessary. I'm going to say everybody can bypass the lobby, and then I'm going to go ahead and send this. That is going to schedule a meeting for everybody at 3 o'clock. So in 10 minutes, I've got a meeting with that entire channel. And then I will get a join option, just like you guys would see in Microsoft Teams. If you would like to chat with the group before you actually start the meeting, you can click on the meeting here and then hit chat with participants. And it's going to dump you into a chat that is a chat specifically for this group. And because I set this up with this channel, it is going to dump me into the channel posts. And I can mention replying to this meeting, and I can say I'm going to be late and just let everybody know. Okay, calls. Calls is going to be a place where you can just basically see incoming and outgoing call information. If you've called people on Microsoft Teams, this is going to be the place where you can review that history. It does have a built-in voicemail, so if you do get a Teams voicemail, if somebody calls you and leaves you one, right here is where you're going to see a history of the voicemail, and you can get that voicemail from them. There are a lot of things that you can do within the calls section. If you have your phones hooked up with Microsoft Teams, which is an option, but it is another license charge. It's a whole project to get that set up and running. If you don't have that already, this is going to be a fairly basic section for you. But if you do have calling within Microsoft Teams, this is going to be a place where you're going to go quite frequently. Otherwise, it's just a place to kind of see where your call history has gone. And then the last thing I want to talk about is this OneDrive section. Now, remember, we talked about OneDrive and SharePoint being two different things. This button here on the left, this OneDrive button within Teams, is going to give you access to both of those at the same time. So up here in this section, My Files, these are going to be my OneDrive files. I'm going to have access to be able to view all the things that are in my OneDrive. And then it also gives me this quick access section to go through and view any of the shared SharePoint files that I have access to. So again, this is going to be one of those where you can gain access to all of your files, and hopefully it doesn't become just more confusing than it is helpful. But you do have access to be able to get into all of these locations from one spot, and that is going to be in the OneDrive section. If you don't have the OneDrive button on the left, you can click on View More Apps and search for it here, and then you can add it over to the left. Just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to add the admin button. Most of you are not going to have that button, so don't worry about that. But if you want, you right-click on it and say Pin, and that is going to stay there on the left every time you open up Teams. If you do not pin it, that application will disappear every time you come back into Teams, and you're going to have to go look for it again. But I recommend if there's something you want to look at frequently, I would say pin that to the left, and then I can come in and look at these here. This planner app is another way of me getting into any of the planners that I'm a member of. This is going to pull planners from every team that I'm a part of and every planner that I'm a part of, and give me the option to, and I'm only a part of this one, so you're not going to see it here, but I would have a new plan, a whole bunch of plans listed here on the left, and then I can just go through each and every planner from one spot. And then finally, since we only have about 5 minutes left, I do want to show you one last thing, and that is the Help button. This right here, the 3 dots, if you come here to Help and go to Video Training, this is going to give you some basic 1 to 3 minute videos on how to utilize some of the basic features within Microsoft Teams. So if there's something that I didn't cover today as we went through this, please feel free to jump in here to this help section. and take a look at any of these options, and you can see if there's anything that you would like to go through. Notice that it does come up here as an app. So if you want to be able to get to it quickly, you can right click and pin that over on your left bar, and then you can come to the help section anytime. What's new is a nice section that lets everybody know what Microsoft is working on with Teams and within the Teams applications. So you can see anything that's coming down the road that they have planned coming up. Okay. Are there any questions, concerns that I can go over with anybody before we end today?
I had a quick question. This is Scott.
Yeah.
So I've been getting more, in fact, during this meeting, I had one sent to me, an email sent from outside the organization that is inviting me to be part of a team.
Okay. So
Now,
there is oh, go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
So I'm assuming when I get something like this, I should be, number one, look at it like any other email. Like if this is unsolicited, I should be concerned about it because it could be phishing.
Yes.
And if I don't know this organization, I should probably just ignore it or delete it or block it or whatever. But how do I know whether, I guess it's a legitimate invite or phishing? And I guess it's probably comes down to you should know the person and know that they're inviting you to something before you accept anything.
That's exactly what it comes down to, is you should know the person who's inviting you. If you're getting invites that are unsolicited, it's most likely phishing. It's very easy for anyone to just create a Teams account and they can add members of Teams. And if you just type in anybody's email address here, you can invite them as a member to your team, whether they're inside or outside your organization. So they're probably inviting you to a team that has links to documents and things that they want you to put information in, and it's probably just a phishing scam. If it is coming from, even if it's coming from a company that you do know, from people that you work with, I still highly recommend giving that person a call on the phone and making sure that they sent that to you.
Yeah.
It's possible that it is possible for people to get into other people's email and Teams accounts. If that's been hacked somehow, then it is possible for them to be creating stuff on the back end with the person not even knowing it. And if you give them a call, they will say, I don't know what you're talking about. But if you just say, oh, I know this person, jump in, it could technically be their account that's being used, but it's somebody else utilizing it for bad purposes. So it's like any other email, any other scam. Make sure that that person has invited you and make sure that you want to be a part of that. And if you don't, you should give them a call, have that conversation. But yes, Scott, that's a great safety point. We want to make sure nobody is getting into there. And again, on the other side, if you do want to invite somebody from an external organization, you should probably let them know beforehand that you're going to, so that they know what to expect. Whether it's just a friendly email to say, hey, we want to invite you to this, or you want to give them a call or have a meeting and talk about it, let them know, hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna set this up, and you're going to receive an email invite from us. Go ahead and accept that, because that is from us. So good point, and that goes both directions. Thanks, Scott. Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions, we'll go ahead and end for today. Hopefully this has been useful for you guys, and if there's anything else you guys want us to cover, let me know, and hopefully you'll enjoy your next training tomorrow with Vincent as well. Thanks, everyone.